I don't know if what I'm about to say is helpful, but I hope that deaf youth, you know, sometimes growing up, we make mistakes, but we learn from them, right? Instead of being depressed and having low self-esteem, no longer engaging with the deaf community, please don't do that. Keep going because it can impact your job opportunities, ability to participate in deaf events, sports teams, various activities. Also, sign language is pretty cool and beautiful. You want to see more accessibility out there to make things easier, right? For example, as the deaf community grows and works together, which means there would be an improvement when it comes to access, hiring more interpreters, etc. I am here on the land and the water of the Mi'kmaq people and nation. When British settlers came to colonize this land, the peace and friendship treaties were signed between the English Crown and the Mi'kmaq nations, which laid out fishing rights, among other rights, in the treaties. Today, the Government of Canada neglects these rights and oppresses the Mi'kmaq fishers and people, which allows colonist descendants to abuse and assault Mi'kmaq fishers, which is a wrong that we must recognize in the past, currently, and in the future. We need to unlearn and decolonize our mindset, respect the land that had never been ceded by the Mi'kmaq nation. We must do our part and approach with truth and reconciliation. We are all treaty people. Hello, my name is Sage Lavelle and welcome to another episode of Deaf What Interview. I'm happy to welcome Matt here. Hello, thank you for inviting me to be here today. I'm excited about the interview. Yes, thank you so much for joining us. So since COVID, how have you been doing? Well, COVID impacted the entire world, but overall, I'm doing good. The important thing is working on your mental health, getting some exercise in, playing video games, as you know, we can't exactly go out. I've been working online from home, teaching college-level ASL. So, it's been fine. But as a referee for soccer, that has been placed on hold. That's why I've been exercising on my own to make sure my body keeps moving, rather than becoming stiff later on and burning out as a referee when it's time to get back on the field. I continue to be in shape. It's true, it's important to exercise, as it's a big part of your job as a referee. So can you let me know about your experiences with the Canada Deaf Soccer team, and how that experience led you to become a referee? Canada Deaf Soccer was established in 2005. It was a small team, slowly growing into a bigger team by 2007. Before that, I would become involved with hearing soccer teams, or any sport, really. Usually being the sole deaf person on the field, where after the game is done, I'd just leave and not socialize due to miscommunication, which happens quite often. That overall experience caused me to have low confidence. Plus, when the coach or the players would talk about the strategic planning of the game, I'm out. I'd get lost often. When I joined the Canada Deaf Soccer team for the first gathering in Ottawa, I was so excited. I booked a flight to go over there. It was my first time. I felt weird. So I flew there, and of course, the Harry Potter experience. Yes. So I was in awe. People like me, that kind of thing. When I arrived, I was just in amazement and just speechless. I was like baby Harry entering a new world. I was so enthusiastic. It wasn't just the deaf experience, but also seeing a pool of diverse deaf people from all over Canada, just like me. And that was so cool. I was able to interact with them, and it was just so fascinating, the socialization. Plus, the coach was a CODA, so he was fluent in sign language. The coach described the game and strategies in detail, which made me understand the game even more compared to my previous experiences. Being stuck in the oral environment with hearing soccer teams here, it was hard to keep track and figure out where we were supposed to be on the field. Often I was lost. Being with Canada Deaf Soccer gave me a boost of confidence, so when I came back home, I felt capable of leveling up in soccer. So here's what happened this one time. Really, that story happened once, but I've experienced many similar scenarios like this quite often. Even today, but not as often like before. Anyways, back to the story. My friend invited me to play soccer just for fun. I showed up and this one person came up to me to say, "So, you play soccer?" And I was like, "Yep." He was like, "You're deaf?" I said, "Yes, I'm deaf." He then proceeded to talk with his friends and I knew what was coming. He asked his friends, "Can he play soccer as a deaf person?" I just ignored that question. One player picked me to join his team. We had to pick players for each team. And that player wanted me to join, and another player was like, "Nah, he's The player reassured him, saying, "Nah, come on, he's really good." And I joined the team, and even subconsciously knowing that there's still work to do, well, for me it's double the work. You know hearing privilege, it's easy for them as they know what they're supposed to do while I've had less experience. I have to show them that I'm able to do this and as good a player as they are. And as I started playing and passing around the ball, the other player was like, wow, he's actually really good, pass the ball to him. So the players kept passing me the ball, and before that he had just dismissed me. Now he's passing the ball to me, and we kept playing the game from that point. The important thing is that and with the Canada Deaf soccer team, which gave me more experience, with the game and before that, I didn't think I was able to play, to be honest. As I learned more about the game and gained awareness, I realized I could do this. These kinds of things shaped my experience and inspired a change of path. As I played soccer, I thought, why don't I try working in soccer as a referee? Why not? And I just went for it. I'd see how it would turn out. I told folks I'd go to try out to be a referee, see how it goes, and people were perplexed. You, a referee, but you're deaf. I did not take their comments seriously. I told them, let's see, maybe it won't work out, or it could be a success. I wanted to be optimistic. I wanted to test the waters. It wasn't like I knew I could do it or not. It was important to do it and see what happened. Before you could be a referee, you need to take a course. Of course, where was the interpreter? So another organization, well, not a deaf organization, but a disability organization that has deaf staff who's able to support deaf clients. And I asked them for their support with ASL interpretation. They found the funding to make it happen for me. Perfect. Everything just fell into place. The ASL interpretation was arranged. I studied a course for becoming a referee under Soccer Nova Scotia. They knew that I was deaf and wanted to see how things would go. When I started working as a referee, just like when I played soccer, I did double the work. I had to. Many people are still surprised to find out that I'm deaf, still today. Well, nowadays people are less surprised, but back then many of them were shocked and wondered how I could do it as a deaf person. One time I walked out onto the grass to the playing field and I walked up to the coach. He said, hello, you're the referee for this game? And I said, yes, I confirmed. And he said, oh, I know your brother. Many people knew who my brother was, and that's how they got to know me. My brother had a good reputation as a coach in Nova Scotia. So yeah, he was like, I know your brother and I have a question. So you're deaf. How do you referee? And I told him, ask me the same question again after the game. And he was like, oh, okay. And I walked off. Had to show him. Again. So I was engaged with the game, running around, making sure I was keeping my eye on the game. I was relieved and I believed I did well. Let's see. I met up with the coach afterwards and he said, deaf? That doesn't matter. You're great. And I was satisfied with his response. All is good. I'll never forget. So that was my first year as referee. So that year I actually received an award as Referee of the Year 2016. Congratulations. I won. I was shocked. I looked at my phone with surprise. I was looking at my phone because I got a message from my mom. In fact, my brother told my mom, and then my mom told me. It was posted on Facebook, so I found out this way, and I was like, wait, what, me? I checked with Soccer Nova Scotia to make sure it was real. It was true, my name was there. Oh my gosh, I was shocked and filled with excitement. My dog was there when I found out, and the dog was excited as well. That's amazing. It's really nice to get recognized. Now people have no problem working with the deaf referee. Knowing the game will be fine with the deaf referee, not like back then. I remember the first time I worked as a referee for a game. There were two boys and they were young, I think maybe 10 years old. And normally in the beginning we'd shake hands with each other and flip a coin to see who plays first. Well, these days we don't shake hands, but anyways, the boys approached each other, and remember, they're only 10 years old, still learning, innocent, a little bit ignorant, and so I told them I am deaf, and that we use gestures, and that I lip read a little, and encouraged them not to speak behind me. They were flabbergasted. They looked at each other and then at me, a bit lost. Also surprised that there was a deaf referee. They were thinking, how do we communicate? It was different and a bit hard, awkward, and a bit funny looking back. Nowadays, people are used to it. Typically, when we meet at the center of the field, I inform them that I'm deaf, and they're like, we know. All right, they already know. I don't have to explain myself. It's a nice feeling. Wow, that's good that they're already accustomed to it. And I'm curious, how do you communicate with hearing people in soccer teams? Also, don't forget that as a referee, we work as a team with other referees. Usually, I tell them that we can use gestures to communicate, mouth words, point at things, and give them permission to tap my shoulder. Typically, people forget they're speaking behind me, so I remind them to tap the shoulder or to go around to my face. In some situations, we gesture what happened with the ball, and I'd suggest body movements, that kind of thing. Show gesture and body movements this way. For example, a player can gesture, I didn't put my hands on the ball, and I gesture, I saw your hands touch the ball. If there's a struggle with communication, I do have pen and paper readily available in my t-shirt front pocket to write them down if things are needed. Sometimes there's a complicated situation, so I do need to write things out and then consult with the coach to clarify some things. Also, communicating with the other referees while in the game is happening. I'm usually in the middle of the field. Sometimes I'll miss something, so I wear a buzzer on my arm that will call for my attention. And then they have the flag where they press a button and it'll send vibrations to my arm. So when they need my attention, they can't just yell at me, especially if I'm not looking in their direction. They can click the button, send vibrations to my arm, and then I'll approach the referees to see what's up. Another thing that helps my ears, sometimes another player is angry and is speaking behind me, which is something that he's not allowed to do. As you know, I can't hear, so what we do is we have linemen stationed at the sidelines and they have access to the buzzer. I get an alert and then I go over and they tell me which player, and I would approach the player and inform them not to speak behind me and assign the punishment, depending. That's pretty cool. Soccer itself is a physical sport, sign language plus gestures, very physical. These two can be integrated. That's cool and easy. I'm curious. Well, soccer itself is a benefit because in this world, many different countries come together and use gestures to communicate. Some countries do not use the same language, and so we have the gestures, and it's very common to use the English language, but still we rely on gestures as well in addition, so that is an advantage. That's so true because we have all these World Cup games and competitions, and not everyone uses English. You're absolutely right. That's pretty cool. That's the amazing thing about sports. There are so many people in the world and they'll all use different languages, but they come together to understand the game. Communication through physicality. That's really cool. What gives you joy? For example, when it comes to my work as a referee, I get really engaged with the game when it's going well. I'm part of this. I'm active. I'm doing something I love and enjoy. I love sports. You know how people sit in the bleachers watching the game, cheering the players on? I'm actually in the game, watching the game as it happens. And this makes me really happy. I'm in this reality. Absolutely. Do you have any thoughts that you'd like to share with the hearing world? The important thing, as they view me, Matt, as a deaf person, that they imagine that other deaf people are the same as me, meaning their needs are the same, but that's not true. They all have different needs. The deaf community is so diverse. Some deaf people prefer using sign language, others may prefer writing, speaking, or working with sign language interpreters, as well as choosing their preferred sign language to use, as there are also regional differences in sign language. The important thing is to have awareness that there are different needs out there. For example, when I go to the grocery store, I wear a mask, which can be difficult in terms of communication. Some deaf people prefer writing back and forth, using gestures, wearing clear masks. There are so many different ways to provide access. The most important thing is to have options available. True. And not just one option, have a number of options readily available for deaf people to choose from. Absolutely. I talk about options a lot with my work in general. We don't want to limit people to just one option. Ask the deaf person about their preferences because one size does not fit all. And the only thing that we share in common is our inability to hear. That's it. We all have different experiences growing up, different educational backgrounds, different interests, different skin colors, different sexualities, all of that. We are so diverse, and that's what I love about the deaf community. We are all so different. The one thing we share is our deafness. That's all. Right. Do you have any advice that you'd like to share for the deaf community? Don't make excuses for your deafness. I can't do this or that because I'm deaf. For example, I had this encounter with another deaf person after a few years of working as a referee. We caught up with each other, and this person asked me, "So you're a referee. How do you do it as a deaf person? You can't do this." I was taken aback, especially getting that from another deaf person. That was interesting. Deaf people think, I cannot do this because I'm deaf, and we need to get rid of that thinking. The important thing is that if you want to do something, then go ahead and do it. Give it a try. Maybe it's not a match. Not because one is deaf, but for other reasons. Maybe they don't actually enjoy doing a certain thing, and it has nothing to do with deafness. For example, my deaf friend is a contractor who builds houses. But that's not really my thing. Because I'm deaf? No, it just doesn't suit me, and that's all to it. Just like hearing people, not everyone likes doing the same thing, and if they don't work out, they find another job or change careers, and that's something to keep in mind. Throw away these excuses that it's because you're deaf. Just do it. You don't like it? Then that's good. Then you can choose a different path. Right. Don't limit yourself just because you're deaf. Deaf people have different skill sets. You have skills and it's not because you're deaf. Skills and deafness, there's no connection there. Being deaf can give you some gains though. So many of us are scared to give things a try because society already restricts us. We're so used to being limited, but we need to break free from that thinking. We need to go ahead and do it. For example, when I was younger, I limited myself when it came to college and didn't apply for scholarships. I didn't think I could win the money because I'm deaf. Years have gone by now that I'm older, I've applied for grants and art projects, and a number of them have been successful. I realized that I was limiting myself, and I no longer do that anymore. I just go for it. I hope the rest of y'all deaf people who have been limiting themselves break free from that thinking. If you want to go after your dreams, do it. Thank you for your message. I completely agree with everything you've said. That's one thing. I'd like to add something else that's important. Within the deaf community, sometimes there are differences in opinion, and I encourage people not to pull others down. You know, like the crab theory. As I climb up the pot, I drag them down because they're not like me, but we should be the same. The important thing is, as we've previously discussed, providing options. With more options, there's a chance their needs will be met. It's important to keep an open mind because, some people say, that's deaf culture. And sometimes they don't accept different options other than their preference. Sometimes there's the concept of not being deaf enough, the capital D, the small d, and those who are not deaf enough being excluded, that thing. Importantly, we allow people to label themselves, whether it's a big D or small d. People can identify in different ways. Some people like speaking and signing at the same time with other groups. That's all right, let them be. Don't be like, shut your mouth, you sign only. It's the same concept that goes for sign language. Some people would be like, I've never seen that sign before, we gotta get rid of it. And that's not how it's supposed to be. Also, we have to respect IBPOC deaf people, especially when it comes to sign language use, in regards to triggering language. We need to honor their safety rather than dismiss them. I've been signing this way forever, which is what some deaf people say. Let's look at it this way. Back in the old days, hearing people called us deaf and dumb. Right. It was part of the dictionary. Then deaf people corrected hearing people, showing the disapproval of the use of the word dumb. It was oppressive. Imagine if hearing people told us, too bad, we've been saying this for years and it'll remain this way. That applies to sign language. It's like saying, I've been signing this way ever since and I won't change. We changed the sign for Chinese. Some people still use it, and we have to correct people with the right sign. Some people would push their eyes back and refuse to change how they sign Chinese. So to try to be open-minded, open to feedback, change, and engage in anti-oppressive behavior for equality. I know it's hard to be equal, but we gotta try. I completely agree with you, yes. If hearing people are able to change their language around deafness, then we are able to change our signs. We can change sign language because language is always evolving. We have to learn and grow to change. Thank you for your thoughts, I appreciate it. Absolutely. It's like the idea of using the sign for parents, and that's very gendered, dad and mom. But what about two moms or two dads? What about making it into a gender-neutral sign? Yes, that. More discussions are needed to have about sign language evolution to see what signs are more inclusive. Absolutely. We're all learning, and I hope we continue to elevate each other within the deaf community, instead of pushing each other down. All of us live different lives with our own experiences and backgrounds. We need to unite, and I know it's not easy to find equality, but we need to do the work. Right, exactly that. Thank you for joining the interview with the Deaf What Project. I'd also like to recognize the Canada Council of the Arts for funding this project. Thank you. Cheers. Cheers, and thank you again for the invitation. I enjoyed doing this interview.